Want to welcome everybody to this evening's webinar. This is Mark Adams, and we're going to be joined by Justin Croxton as well. We're going to talk about how to sell on Amazon in any country, any Amazon market, regardless of where you live. So with that said, let's get started. Let me just kind of lay a little bit of foundation of what we're doing and where we're going this evening. Many of you know me from our Head Start program. Maybe you came across this from seeing some of my videos on YouTube, but we do all types of Amazon training, all types of different things. Recently, you're going to hear Justin in a bit, but Justin was somebody who I came across roughly a year or so ago. Well, earlier this year, I guess it was. And he got the Head Start course and went in. We were having our consultation, and he was talking about, he's getting his product going. Now, just to tell you just a little bit, Justin went from 0 to 6 figures in 6 months, which I think is a pretty impressive thing that I think most people would be proud to do. But part of how he did this is that he started doing and selling in international countries. Like me, he lives in the United States, and he started out there. But as we got talking, I distinctly remember a conversation he had with him, or we had, and he said, I think I'm going to try and expand this internationally. It makes sense to me to be able to take the product I already have pictures, I already have copy, I already have supplier or a relationship with a supplier. Seems like to me it would be easier to sell in all the other Amazon countries than continue to constantly find new products. And I said, I agree with you 100%. I think that's a very, very valid idea. When I started and you wanted to expand, I started with a chain of clothing stores, you had to go build other retail outlets. Nowadays, you just simply send inventory to other places. And just going in all this, I asked him, I said, how are you going to do this? And he says, I don't know, but he figured it out. And I said, what about marketing? He says, I don't know, but he went and figured it out. So by doing this and the work that he did, it allowed him to go to that 6 figures in a very, very short time. But as I think through this strategy, this is one of many. You can certainly have a very, very profitable Amazon business selling in one country. But as I sit and think and try and lead our community and I spend time trying to think, okay, where are we going in 2016? What do we need to do to change and adapt to be able to grow our businesses? It's no secret that there's a little bit more competition than there was a while back in any country in Amazon now. But what I see happening is so many sellers who are coming into the American market. I don't know why we're so fixated on that. I don't know why we can't start in Japan and why somebody from Japan or New Zealand, we saw some names on here, why you can't go to Germany. All of the world is flat, and Amazon has made this relatively easy compared to what it used to be able to expand. But so I brought Justin in. We're going to talk about this. We got some things to help you get going a little bit later on. But Justin's going to tell you a little bit about his experiences and what he did to get started. So with that said, I want to introduce my partner on this and my friend, Justin Croxton. So Justin, go ahead and take over.
Mark, you're too kind. I appreciate the kind words, my friend. Greatly appreciate that.
Look.
And everyone else that's out there, really want to thank all of you for just kind of joining the call. I know in certain countries it's a little bit late. It's probably 4 a.m. out there or at least 2 a.m. if I'm not mistaken, out there in the UK and some of the other markets. And also for those folks that are here in the United States, really appreciate you guys taking the time out. Really do appreciate that. Mark's kind of given away the world when it comes to sort of my background, but I'll kind of go through it again as quickly as I can. Let's go to the next slide. So just a little bit about me. I just really want to reiterate and really stress this point. I'm a lot like a lot of you guys where you either have a full-time job or you already run your own business. And for me, I kind of run my own business. I've been in digital marketing for roughly 8 years, and I run my own digital marketing agency. So we do a lot of search engine optimization, pay-per-click advertising, web development. We've had quite a bit of success in that area. And, for me, I got to the point where I was like, I'm kind of trading time for dollars, but it's fine, and I'm doing great in this business. But I want something that's a little bit more scalable, which is part of the reason why all of us and many of us were really gravitated over to Mark in his course. And, just like a lot of you, I bought Mark's course. And I've had quite a bit of success as a result of that being sort of the foundation that's allowed me to not only build my Amazon business here in the United States, but also building my Amazon business on a global basis. So a little bit more about me. I'm a founder of my own e-commerce and Amazon selling blog. And I really got started on selling on Amazon in April of 2015. That's when I launched my first product. So as you can imagine, it took me close to about say about 3-4 months to get my product going. But finally, I got it going, and I'd say probably in May to June of 2015 is when I launched globally, meaning I started to launch in some of the other Amazon marketplaces, including Spain, Italy, France, Japan, a lot of these other marketplaces. So now I've gotten to the point where I currently do somewhere around roughly five figures on a monthly basis, or really a six-figure business. And it's really been quite a ride. I've made quite a number of mistakes. Has really cost me, thousands of dollars, but hopefully these are mistakes that you guys won't have to deal with. So now over this period of time, I now have 8 different products that I sell in 8 different marketplaces, including, of course, the United States being the base market, Canada, UK, Germany, Spain, Italy, France, and of course Japan, which is really one of the more interesting markets that we'll talk about in a little bit. So what are you guys going to learn today? First and foremost, I have conversations with a number of people who think that, I need to just continue with my own brand and just continue to build multiple products, and that's obviously a very important strategy from a growth perspective. But there's also this concept of being able to expand globally that I'm really going to try to make the case for and why it's so important, and just kind of get you thinking in that area. Next, really, there's 2 people who, of course, can do this, right? You have those that have their own existing Amazon business, and me showing you sort of how to launch your own Amazon global business in any market of your choosing. And even if you have your own products currently or your own product, what it looks like and what that process would look like if you were to expand into some of these other Amazon marketplaces. Also want to talk a little bit more about some of the strategies, and specifically some strategies that I think a lot of people aren't aware of, but for me, I have personally had to just learn myself, and hopefully I can share some of those with you. And then finally, just the process of launching your product, both the standard process that all of us may be aware of, but also that global process of what I've learned thus far. So when we look at the global Amazon selling map, Amazon has put so much money into their fulfillment centers. And if you're a private label seller, of course, many of you probably are aware of this, but the opportunity is ripe to really take a product, private label it, and sell in your individual market. But they've also created these fulfillment centers all across the world, not in every country, of course. But say, for example, in the United States. Of course, you have the United States, you have Canada, you also have Mexico, which is another market that they recently just sort of really opened up to Amazon sellers. You also have Europe. So in Europe you have the UK, you have Germany, Spain, Italy, and France, which is sort of its own market, if you will, but it's really 5 different marketplaces. And then sort of closer to the Asian countries, you have China, you have India, and you have Japan. I'm really not at the place where I'm doing anything in China and India, but certainly Japan has been really a surprising market for us. I mean, we've actually achieved some of the best margins in the Japanese market. So I really just want to kind of show you guys that there's a lot of opportunity, and if you think strategically, you can say to yourself that, you know what, maybe it doesn't make sense for me to get started in the United States. Maybe I see that my current product that's selling in the UK, there's some opportunity in Canada, and the competition isn't as great, so I'm just going to start selling in that marketplace. Or I may say to myself that I currently sell in the UK, I just want to expand into Germany and see what that looks like. The opportunities really are there to take advantage of all the things that Amazon has already sort of laid out for us, from an Amazon global selling perspective. Let's see here. So why Amazon global selling matters. And this is sort of a concept that I just have so much appreciation for, because it's a cost that you've already spent. This is the whole concept around lower sunk costs. And so what that essentially means is you've already spent the money. If you're an existing Amazon seller and you already have your product, you've already gone through the process of sourcing the product, the time, you've already spent money on the samples, you've also spent money on the branding, the pictures, if you've gotten photography taken care of, the UPC codes, the graphics, all these things have already been paid for. And so if you want to expand globally, really the only thing that you have to do, not the only thing, but one of the things that you won't have to worry about is having to pay for all that stuff over again, really you're taking all that information and you're relisting it and you're populating that to some of the other marketplaces that you've signed up for. So for me, that's one of the things that I really, really love about being able to sell on Amazon and some of these other marketplaces, not just your base marketplace that you currently live in. There's also this concept on being able to diversify your cash flows. And I think, some of us are are aware of the whole concept of exchange rate risk, and if one economy does well, another economy kind of goes up, and everything sort of ebbs and flows with the tides. And I think that really holds true from a risk diversification standpoint. So for me, and just my own personal experience, I've seen cases where at certain times of the year, I've had sales that have done really, really well in one marketplace, and then sales in another marketplace has gone down. Regardless of all the different marketplaces that I sell in, I've still been able to do relatively well from a sales perspective in all the different marketplaces. But every once in a while, things just kind of go up and down. And if you have your products in some of these other marketplaces, if one goes up, or let's say if one goes down, you don't have to worry about losing your entire shirt over it because you're still selling in one of these other markets. So I'd like people just kind of think about it from that perspective, because it's nice to get a check from not just the United States, in my case from the United States because I live here in the US. It's nice to get something from the UK, it's nice to get something from Canada or from Germany or from any of the other marketplaces. So that's one thing that's really powerful concept, but it's so important to take into consideration if you're making the leap and deciding that you want to go ahead and sell in some of these other marketplaces. There's also relatively low competition. Of course, that depends on the category itself, but I will say that if you compare the competition in the United States, which is incredibly fierce, depending on the category, of course, comparing that to, let's say, the UK or in Germany, the competition is relatively low. And I'm not saying that it's easy, but if you're following the foundation, the best practices of what's important to rank well in some of those categories and some of those markets, it's very, very doable. So it's not like you need, let's say, 100 reviews or 1,000 reviews. There are some cases where in certain marketplaces I only have 15 reviews or 50 reviews, and I'm still selling relatively well, and I'm getting a nice check from that particular marketplace. So I really want you guys to take that into consideration. If you're deciding, okay, is this for me? Should I go ahead and launch a new business in a different market, or should I go ahead and expand into all these different markets? And even if you're currently a seller in the United States, a lot of us say, well, if I need to get started, I can't just get started with 100 units. I need to get started with 500 units. Really, the only thing else that you would have to do if you wanted to sell globally or in one of these other markets is just reach out to your supplier, and when you place your order for a new order, essentially, you say, hey, look, I need 600 units. Instead of sending all of them to the United States, you send 500 to the United States, and you send 100 to the UK. And we'll talk about some of the benefits of selling, particularly in the UK, in a second. And then also we have, let's see here, so there's also less inventory to get started. Again, kind of like what I said before, you don't have to get started with, let's say, 500 units in the UK or in Japan. You only really need 100 units or 50 units to get started in those marketplaces, because you don't have to give away as much inventory from a promotions perspective, or to get reviews for that matter. And even for me, when I got started selling in Japan, I only sent 50 units to Japan because I had no clue what was going to happen, but I was willing to take the risk and see what was possible. And I got started with 50 units. I reached out to some reviewers out there, some other folks that I was able to find by the graces of God. And next thing you know, I was able to get 10 reviews, and I was able to get sales going, and it was just astounding. I just saw the sales coming in. I was like, wow, this could be truly an amazing marketplace as I continue to scale my business and expand more of my products across some of the other geographies. So that's something else that you guys can consider as you're thinking about expanding or starting a new business in one of these other global marketplaces. So let's talk a little bit of strategy for a second. There are a number of strategies out there that we all can think about, right? But there's a couple that for me that have worked that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, but are crucial in some of these different marketplaces that has made it a little simpler, maybe not easy, but simpler for us as Amazon sellers to get started in some of these different markets. So first, did you guys know that you can sign up with an account in Europe and still sell across all 5 European markets? So what does that mean? You can essentially, you only need one registration. You don't need to register 5 different times and essentially have 5 different registrations to get started in all these different markets. The other good thing that has been my experience is that many of these other marketplaces, they will have their own individual speaking language department. So say, for example, if you're selling in Germany, they not only have a department that it primarily focuses on German speakers, but they also have a department for English speakers as well. So that's one of the things that I really appreciate about what Amazon has thought about as far as ensuring they're able to take care of their sellers, and they're also able, of course, able to communicate effectively with their sellers as well. There's also still separate reporting, and obviously you would still relist, or I guess list your products across each individual marketplace individually, but the reporting is separate. So earlier I said that, I get a separate check from each of the different marketplaces. The same thing holds true as far as the reporting, the sales, the promotions, the fees. You can see that entire breakdown on a market-by-market basis, which is great from a management perspective. And then when you look at just the overall markets, I did want to just mention this, that out of all the marketplaces, obviously the United States is the largest market, but UK and Germany are not shabby at all. I mean, UK, from a revenue perspective, the United States did about $55 billion last year. And if you just think from a market cap perspective, the UK, they did somewhere around 10 billion. Germany did about 11, 12 billion. Japan is right up par with 8 to 10 billion. So if you look at the demand and the competition from that perspective, you can see that UK and Germany and some of the other marketplaces are really great opportunities depending on the category, depending on the product that you decide to tap into for your Amazon selling business. So next, did you know that you can send inventory to the United Kingdom but still sell in the other 4 European markets of France, Italy, Spain, and Germany? So I want you guys to really think about that for a second. It's not like I have to take 100 units, take 100 units and send 20 units to the UK, 20 to France, 20 to Italy and Spain, and 20 to Germany. You only need to send all 100 of those units or whatever you're comfortable with to one fulfillment center, in this case, United Kingdom, and sell in the other 4 marketplaces, including the United Kingdom. And so for me, that's been great because, I'm able to better manage, have a better handle on inventory management. I mean, when I first got started, I didn't know what was going to happen in UK or in Italy or in Spain. But by having it in one fulfillment center, I'm not dealing with excess inventory or anything like that. If I sell out, okay, and if I sell in all the other marketplaces in Europe, it's still pulling from the same fulfillment center that's out there in Peterborough, United Kingdom, in the United Kingdom marketplace. So that's been a really good thing. The other is that you also don't have to worry about the reduced shipping costs, as many of us, or the reduced costs and shipping fees, excuse me. So we all know that the less inventory that you send or that you ship out, the more it's going to cost you on a per unit basis. And that same concept holds true here. So when it comes to just shipping particular products or inventory for that matter, it doesn't cost you as much on a per unit basis, which is really great. And also, look, our suppliers, they make mistakes from time to time. There's also the whole language barrier. When you're sending your inventory just to one fulfillment center, it really does reduce the chances that your supplier is going to make a mistake. Of course, as they become more comfortable, they sort of learn what it really takes to send your inventory to all the different right marketplaces. But in this case, I just like that as well, which is really good. And then next, the other thing is it is very simple to get registered in these other markets. It's very similar to what many of us who sell in the United States, or even if you currently sell in Europe or any of the other markets currently right now, that same seller dashboard that you see is the same seller dashboard that's out there in the United States, that's in UK, that's in all of Europe for that matter, not all of Europe, but the Amazon European markets, and any of those other markets that's out there that you would want to sell in. The dashboard is essentially the same. The difference, and here's the difference, is that if you want to sell in, let's say, Europe, you only need to get started with one unified account. And inside of that unified account in Europe, you can kind of go across and sort of click through from one marketplace to the next. So you can go to UK, you can go to Germany, Spain, Italy, and France. That's one unified account, right? Let's say in the United States, many of us may already be aware of this, but in the United States, for a unified account, you have the United States, you have the USA, and then you can also click between the Mexico and also between Canada as well. Same concept. The only country that has its own, or not only country, but for the sake of this conversation, the only country that really has its own registration, its own seller dashboard, is Japan. Again, it's all the same in terms of the breakdown of the different tabs in the payment section versus your business reports versus inventory management. All that's the same. But Japan, it's its own registration. Europe, it's its own registration. And then United States or North America is its own registration as well. So that's just something to think about. I mean, the process for getting registered on these marketplaces and the information, the business information that's required is not as great. Again, it's all the same process. There might be certain countries that may require just a little bit more information, but nothing that would be that challenging for you as a hurdle for you to get over. So I thought it was important to just talk a little bit about the Amazon selling process that many of us are probably already aware of, right? And Mark really laid this out beautifully in his course. It really starts with, first, you research and you pick a product, right? That's the first step. You research, you pick your product. Next step, we source that product. So we're going to reach out to folks on Alibaba. We're going to go to any of these other marketplaces where we can find a supplier. We source that supplier. Once we've sourced that supplier and we feel good about it, we have that inventory either shipped directly to us or we have it shipped directly to, let's say, Amazon in this case. And then once we've done that, we have that product has been fully listed. We've either translated, whatever that looks like, but we've gone ahead and we've listed that particular product. Step 4, we market the heck out of that product. We're doing everything that we can to get reviews, and not just any reviews, but good, solid reviews for the product. We're promoting it. We're turning on Amazon PPC. Then obviously you're managing your business the best way that you can. You're looking at your business reports. You're looking at your margins. You're checking all of those different things. And then once the money comes in, you're going to take your spouse or yourself to Tahiti. Now, that's probably not the smart thing to do, right? You probably don't want to do that starting off. But the smart thing probably is to take those funds and put it back into the business. That's probably the best thing to do. Now, with that being said, this process of selling on Amazon, let's say in this case in the United States, the process is very similar to what you would do in all these other marketplaces. The algorithm in terms of ranking on Amazon is specific to each individual marketplace, but the algorithm as a whole is pretty much the same. So let's say, for example, from a global selling perspective, if we wanted to get started, let's say, selling in the UK, the first thing that I would probably have to do is really research that marketplace to see if that is the right marketplace to get started in. I may decide, heck, maybe I want to get started in Japan. Maybe I want to get started in let's say, in Canada for that matter. But that's kind of the first thing you're going to do, and then you're going to pick your product and figure out, okay, maybe if I have an existing product, I'll sort of pressure test that product against those marketplaces and then decide from there. And then, part of, there's a lot of substeps that we kind of go through. You're also going to sort of translate your listing. You're going to translate the keywords that you're going after, get a sense of what keywords make sense in one marketplace versus the other. And just to give you a quick example, the same words that we think are spelled one way in the United States might be spelled completely differently in the UK. But there are ways to figure that out, and I've been able to kind of go through that process to really thinking through. Okay, this word mold, M-O-L-D, is not the same in the UK. In the UK, they really spell it, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. Might be a little wrong on this, but I believe it's spelled M-O-U-L-D. So I'm sure I'll hear some folks that will say, no, Justin, it's both, or it's one. But that's a nuance. But those nuances can make the difference between 2 sales a day versus 4 sales a day versus 5 sales a day. So it's really something to really take into consideration. And so there's a number of subsets that I've personally gone through to really figure out. Okay, if I'm going to market this product in Japan, I don't know Japanese, but I know how to translate. I have a couple tools at my disposal that will allow me to not just figure out the keywords that can be powerful, but also how to translate at least part of my listing so I can have some success in that marketplace and truly speak the language of the people that live there in Japan. And then once you've kind of gone through all that, then finally take yourself or your spouse to Tahiti and have a good time. So that's pretty much all I have from my part. I'm sure there will be quite a bit of Q&A, and I really want you guys to just throw out as many questions as possible because I want to answer as much as I possibly can. So that's pretty much it. Mark, I'm going to hand it back over to you, and we're going to talk about what, probably a number of us are kind of dealing with this whole fork in the road situation. So, Mark, take it away.
I'm still thinking Tahiti.
No. Probably not a good idea that I bring that up, right?
I know, and I'm just sitting here thinking for all of us in the Western world, it's a long way away. And it's really a dream as much as it is a physical place. But for everybody here who's from all the places we saw, from Bali to Australia to New Zealand and closer to that part of the world, that's probably like us going to somewhere here to Florida or something. So, maybe we could have something a little bit different.
Maybe Dubai.
Maybe that would be it. Maybe that would be it. All right. Well, thank you for that, Justin. I mean, as you hear him talking this, he obviously has become maybe the definitive expert in this particular area in all of the Amazon world. So I wanted to bring him in and be able to do this. But this is in part where I do truly believe the Amazon business is going, is we're going to 2-3 years down the road, we're going to look back and say this was where we all took the fork in the road and decided to take our business globally. And then if we could go in that crystal ball and store the conversation, we'll say, well, this is maybe the seminal moment where we decided to do it. With what Justin has gone over, you can certainly do all these things by yourself, and that's no ifs or ands or buts about it, but it's going to be hard to do. It's going to take the long time frame, and as aggressive and hardworking as Justin is, I doubt many people would be able to do it at his pace and have his results. But you've got the basic information, what he's given you to be able to do it. So as I think through this webinar this evening, I'm not really sure why any of you showed up. Maybe it was something, content you're really interested in. Maybe you were just tired of that long commute and you really weren't able to think of Tahiti yet. But maybe you're not able to spend time with your family because you're tired from that train ride if you're in Europe, or a car ride if you're here in the United States, whatever it might be. But I think we come across certain forks in the road in our life, and I think this is one of them. You can certainly do nothing. You can certainly take the information, do something on yourself. But if you want to have this and get a head start in what you're doing, Justin and I have put together some content here that in essence will allow you to get that head start and get going and do those same results or even exceed what he had, and probably exceed, because if he was able to go from 0 to 6 figures in 6 months by doing it on his own, you certainly can do it faster. So let's see if we can go over some things that we put together for you. What we've created is really an extension, a second level to the FBA Head Start course, and we're calling it a private label passport course. So in our thought process is we're issuing you a passport to be able to go and sell in any country out there. But in this course we put together, you're going to learn everything you need to know and how to expand your products into the international markets. The concepts of doing this are really pretty simple, but the application can be a little bit tricky. So we put everything that Justin has learned, everything that he and I have talked about together to make this as easy a transition for you as it can be. So we've got 4 modules on how to get started. Everything that goes literally from finding products that work well in international markets, getting them listed, understanding each individual country, Module 3 is all about how to market and some of the little subtleties that you just won't know unless somebody tells you. And then 4, how to take the information you get from all of those different countries, and then how to scale it up and get more profit from that. We got lots of bonus modules in here. If you are really have not launched your first product yet, we have some bonus modules that will show you everything to do to get you up to speed. And then we've got some checklists and different things in this. And then also too, many of you here I know are in our Facebook group, but for those of you who are not, we have a very active and thriving Facebook group where you can go in and have your questions answered. There's you can ask one question and then numerous people will come in after the fact. It's kind of one of those things, I guess, where you can come in for the content but stay for the community, because I have all kinds of messages every week where people write something where they say the Facebook group was so valuable to them and it helped them, and they appreciate the response that they get there. So good stuff going in as far as what we've put together in the course. Again, if you go a little bit more detail in Module 1, we really get into some of the strategies. We tell you, for instance, a strategy is maybe starting out in Japan, because if you think this through, Japan has less freight coming from China to Japan because there's a fraction of the distance versus coming here in the United States. You might can knock 5 to 8% off your product cost just by less than shipping. And then the way that the yen exchanges with the dollar, and I'm sure some of the euros and pounds as well, Aussie dollars, whatever it might be, you get a much higher retail price in Japan. We can't figure out why, but for whatever reason, they're just willing to pay more in Japan. Maybe things just cost more there. I don't know. Don't question it. But I know that if you can put another 4 or 5 points on the top, save another 4 or 5 points at the bottom as far as your cost, you've got a whole lot more money coming in your pocket. So we talk about some of these. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Mark. I was also going to say, and to that point, just give you guys an example for Japan. The exchange rate difference is 0.00383. So for every, let's say, $20 that's spent here in the United States, it's the equivalent of 1975 yen. Yes, yen. So it's part of the exchange rate, part of the how expensive that market can be, but it's something that's just very, and certainly worth considering as you look at the different marketplaces that are available out there.
Okay. We're going to get into market research as far as how to look at products not only for your own individual market, which is pretty much what everybody's doing right now, but look at it as with a broader perspective of, okay, if I'm going to go and do this product, will it work in country A, B, and C? We're going to talk about how to do keyword research in a lot of detail, much like what he was talking about with the word mold example. I always think of the word color, how it's spelled differently in different English-speaking places. How to translate keywords, which is very, very important, and understanding how to get that going. Because, again, some places, the perfect example, in the United States, we'd call it a cutting board. They call it a chopping board in many other English-speaking places. So you have to be aware of some of the subtleties that are in some of the different language and how to translate it, and the tools that we use and the processes that we use to be able to do that. Understanding what your competitors are doing. Big section on what and how to evaluate how competitive a market is and what's being done, and then ultimately how to take advantage of that. And then ultimately some checklists and some different things of should you finalize and go with that particular product or not. Module 2 is about getting things set up. This is about all the information you're needing, because it's funny. Justin did all this on his own, and he kind of used me as a guinea pig. He says, okay, if you're a seller here in the U.S., which is where I have all of my things, what concerns you about going into these countries? So here's what I would be concerned about. And then we listed all the different things of the information you would need, and then knowing what's needed in each country, we've got listings of what you need. So very, very helpful process in that, and actually goes through into each individual country and specifies what you need. Saves you a ton of time going in and getting started. Where to get your sales pages set up, all the process. Some process or parts in there too about shipping to the different fulfillment centers in each country. But there's a separate section on each country that talks about that as well. So you'll know specifically what you would need for Spain or Italy. Each country is just literally broken down and broken out. Again, you see all the different countries, test list in each one of those. Then the promotions and marketing. It's a little bit different. As he said, you don't need as many reviews in some of these places. However, it's important how you translate it. There's all the tools and all the little tips and tricks that he's learned to be able to do this, do it quickly and do it efficiently. How to get reviews on an organic basis through some of the global email autoresponders, and you can't just send that out in English. You have to be able to translate that into that language. And again, how to do some of those things and tie this into their country. For instance, In Germany, a lot of people certainly speak English there, but I think they appreciate a brand that will try and speak to them in their language. So they're much more likely and appreciative, or to buy from a brand and be appreciative of that brand, if they try and don't play the ugly American where you expect everybody to adapt to you. So those little things matter. We got tons of little things in there of how to do that. And then how to do the different product ads or the PPC ads in each market, which are similar, but again, some different subtleties. And again, this course is all about subtleties here. We're not hitting anybody over the head with a sledgehammer. This is all surgery here. So it's kind of that's what separates people from just being a blunt instrument versus skill and technique, or some of the subtleties, I think. And four, once you get your business up and running, you can make a tremendous amount of difference in how well you manage it. All the little things you need about how to manage your different reports, how to get paid, how to get set up, just some basic management things on how to improve your profits, how to improve your sales. We eliminate all the mistakes that have been made, and as Justin said, thousands of dollars worth of things, but it made them for you. And then again, what reports you should focus on, and ultimately where you should best spend your time. So that's what's in the first four modules and basically the gist of the course. But I can't reiterate enough, it is blood, sweat, and tears in there, and basically has plowed the way, trailblazed, whatever word you want to call it, pioneered to be able to get going. And there's an old expression I remember, I'm thinking from way back, is that the pioneers get the arrows and the settlers get the land. So Justin's got probably plenty of holes in him from some of the arrows that he's taken while trailblazing here. So now it's time to come in and settle it and start building the villages, I guess. But also, too, there's lots of bonuses in here. We got all kinds of different videos where we talk about how to find things with Google Trends and strategies to find products, promotions, all kinds of different things. These are all things that are, again, unique to global selling, which, again, is similar but different in a subtle way than traditional selling. Discounts on your product photography. I've even got in there my personal Rolodex of resources, so you can get started with all things like that. Photographers, as I mentioned, graphic designers, stuff like that. And again, then as I mentioned before, we've got access to the Facebook community, which I can't stress enough is imperative to have the help and support that you have. We're going to have periodic question and answer webinars, because with all courses you can get information, but no matter how well it's laid out, something will come up to where you'll certainly need to ask some questions, and we'll be available to ask questions live during those webinars. And for many of you know, we're in the Facebook group quite often, so you've got access to us as well as to plenty of other people who can answer your question. It's one of the advantages of having a group that is as big as ours and still continues to grow at a very, very rapid pace. With that said, we're going to take all the risk in this. We put together a really, really good course, but if you find this is not for you for whatever reason, easy peasy here. And that's about it, sports fans. So what I want you to do now, we're going to do Q&A in a second and start taking some questions for Justin. But I want you to go check out all the details. Just simply go to privatelabelpassport.com, and you'll see everything there. If you want to wait and go now, that's fine. If you want to go after we're finished, fine. It's going to be there. I go through and I see people do courses where this value is $4,000, but today it's $19. For those of you who know me, we're not like that. This is a good course. This is something that if you take it and, more importantly, apply the information, you'll make money at it. This is a course that I'm convinced this is where things are going on Amazon. This is where I am shifting all of my personal business and growth within my products, Amazon products, for the coming year of 2016. I'm going to China on Sunday morning, and my whole focus is to be able to find products that I can expand in international markets. And if the supplier says we can't do that, or we only want to ship to the U.S., I'm not going to do it, because I am just so convinced in my mind this is where things are going. This is the low-hanging fruit for 2016. So I don't want to go and beat a dead horse here, but I'm just convinced this is the place to be. And if it weren't, I wouldn't have put effort into putting all this information together with Justin. So again, privatelabelpassport.com. If you have questions, you can post them in the Facebook group if you're already a member. If you're not, you can certainly contact us. There's a link at the bottom of the page where you can go in and send questions if you want to do that. But right now, if you would, and you probably see my mouse moving around here as we do this, so I can click and see questions. But if any of you have questions, go ahead and type them in the answer box, and we'll give everybody a few seconds to get going. but we'll sit around and hang around till roughly the top of the hour and see if we can and answer some of those questions. So if anybody has something, go ahead and type that in, and then we'll go from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and guys, don't be shy. You want to ask questions around research, around keywords, about strategy, anything that you're thinking about, please, throw them in the chat box, and we'll try to get through them as efficiently and quickly as possible. No shyness out there.
All right, here's our first one from Bob. Bob is saying, "What?" Let's see. Hold on a second. Well, hold on. I'm out of order.
Dennis
Hold on.
had one, right?
Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Okay, here we go. I just had, those of you who have been on webinars before know that the tech gods do not favor me. They have never favored me, and they will never favor me. So the simplest of all these things, my logic in my brain just works very differently, which I guess is what allows me to pick products easily. But clicking columns and getting things sorted and whatever is a hard thing for me. But anyway, Don has the question here. It says, do you need to register a business in each of these countries?
No, that hasn't been my experience. Particularly, at least to get started on Amazon, my business is based here in the United States, and I'm still able to successfully sell in all of Europe, in Canada, as well as in Japan. So no, not based on my experience.
All right. Dennis writes in and says, going globally is a no-brainer. He writes underneath, he got the course when he was at our live event a couple weeks ago, and I can't wait to dive in. And we just got all that information out today. Dennis, you should have seen that in an email. But again, thank you for the kind comments on that. Glad to have you be part of the course. And he says, I have my box labeled. We're talking about his item, I guess. I have my box labeled with the Amazon FNSKU. Can I use that same box and code if I send that to Japan or other countries? That's a good question.
No, that's a very good question. And so what's been my experience is that I've had some situations in Japan where I did have to, in fact, create an FN SKU just for Japan and to send that into Japan. There is a chance that you can actually send that same FN SKU across any of the different marketplaces. I haven't gone through that. For me, I'm brand registered in all the marketplaces, so I just utilize I essentially utilize my UPC code, my unique product identifier, and that's really all I have. But the way to get that finally answered, and I recommend this for anyone, just have Amazon call you. So click the Get Support link, have them give you a call in any individual marketplace once you've registered in that marketplace, and you're good to go. In worst case scenario, if you need to get the FN SKUs redone, you can get them redone easily by your supplier or even by yourself. That's the worst case. That should not be an inhibitor of being able to sell on any of the different marketplaces, though.
All right. Mary writes in and says, do you have to do separate listings for each EU country?
Yes.
Okay. Do a listing in each language. Separate and...
No. So here's the best way to answer that. You do have to create a separate listing. Obviously, you don't have to send inventory if you don't want to each individual country, but you do have to create a separate listing in each individual country. It's your prerogative of whether you decide to translate your listing, whether if you're selling, for example, in Spain, have half of it be English and Spanish, or all of it be English. It's really your call. For me, I decided that it was important to at least translate at least half, or at least 20% of my listing to that particular country's language. And I just feel like there's just a certain level of appreciation, or the attempt that you're making to ensure that you're speaking the language of the country that you're selling your product in. Now, I also get this particular question on, well, do I need to change my packaging? You really don't need to change your packaging either, at least not at this point. If you do get to the point where you're making a ton of sales and you feel like, you know what, I think I need to go ahead and do that, then by all means, that's your prerogative. But we have our packaging, it's all in English. The only difference is that on the actual listings, some of our listings might be in German, some of them might be in French, or definitely Japanese, and we just kind of go about it that way.
You're gonna put the multiple languages on future products to start?
Put the multiple languages on future products.
I am for items that you release in the future.
I am considering that. I am highly considering that, particularly for the marketplaces that we're getting quite a bit of sales in. Like for example, like Germany is an amazing market. There's a lot of demand. It's a much more mature market, just in terms of just maturity of a market, not necessarily Amazon, but in terms of Amazon, I mean it's the third or the second biggest marketplace out of Amazon's overall, portfolio of countries that they do business in. So I am highly considerate. I haven't fully made that decision just yet.
Mary suggesting that just to eliminate some of the technical mistakes, you have a native speaker do that. And Mary, you can certainly do it. I mean, we're using software and different things to do this, and it seems to be fine. People are pretty forgiving if you're just trying. And I just think I mean, I've been fortunate to travel most of the world, and as long as I can say a few words, they know it's not pronounced right or what, but people seem to be very forgiving. But that's certainly one way to do it. Okay, Mark says, looks like the UK population is double Canada, so that may indeed make the most sense for the next international move. And I guess he's making more of a comment than a question, but yeah, I would agree, Mark. I mean, it's the language. There's no language barrier for those of us who speak English. But again, Germany is probably per capita a better buying market than the UK. So, UK is really good too. Canada, the only thing with Canada is really good, it's just there's only 30 million people in Canada. State of California is bigger than Canada. So that's the thing I see in Canada, but it's also easiest for those of us who are in the United States to get products here because we already have a unified account. Jim says, I am brand new to this. I'm in Hungary. Well, Jim, I mean, I guess you can do this just like we're saying. This is a global thing, so it doesn't matter. Mark chimes in, I guess, as a follow-up. Again, with the UK, since there's already a Head Start group, review group, that would make sense to start there. What are your thoughts on that, Justin? And again, versus I know a lot of people are concerned about getting reviews in some of these other countries.
I think that's a great point. I know there's been some concerns and some heartburn, I guess, for existing sellers who lost some of their reviews, and really just lost some of their reviews because of you have to leave this product in exchange for honest and unbiased review. Language. I have not had that problem at all in any of the different marketplaces that I've instructed my reviewers to leave. And again, I have a way that I've gone about being able to find my own reviewers in each of these marketplaces. So in the UK, I lost like 40 reviews, but now I'm back up to 50, and I'm about to be back up to 80 for one of my products. In, let's say, Japan, I have 10 reviews for one of the products, and it still does relatively well. Canada, I have 36 reviews. All the things that I've done to get reviews in each of these different marketplaces have been fairly straightforward, but the beauty with our group, of course, is that you do have the review group that Mark Lucchini's, hopefully I said that right, Mark, is referring to. So that is another bonus.
All right, and then we've got Mike wants to know, how much did your first product cost and what did you sell it for?
So my first product cost, I'm usually a proponent of selling some of the higher ticket items, so items that are going to sell greater than $20 or $19. However, I do believe in diversification, not just in terms of countries, but in terms of products. So I found a few products that actually sell somewhere around $9 to $10. And for me, my margins are somewhere closer to 35 to 40%, some cases 45%. We're usually averaging somewhere around 40% though on the products that I'm currently selling. And particularly, just give you an example, in the Japanese market, I was at a point where that same product that we purchased at at the standard price from our supplier, we're able to sell that same product for 15 to $20. And so that's like a 70-80% profit margin, which is amazing in my judgment.
Jim's just making a comment here. He says, I need to get started. And I said, I couldn't agree more, Jim. Like I said, I'm just like, this is where, I mean, as we started going through this evolution of this process and putting all this information together, and I'm doing this content literally as a student, and I'm thinking, this is where I think I'm going. And I think in all my business ventures over the years, and I built up and sold 6 different businesses, I always ended up doing something a little bit different after the fact than when I started, just simply because things evolve. And I think you have to accept that you believe it or you don't. It's up to you as a business person. But I just truly believe this is where it's going. And I think we all need to share Jim's opinion here and get started and go in whatever direction, because again, I'm just truly convinced of this. Dave asked a question, says, what about VAT and setting up limited entity or a limited entity?
Sure. So this is one area that I have not gotten to just yet. I'm not a tax accountant. I'm not, an attorney. So I'm not an expert in that area. I'm sure I'll have to deal with that pretty soon. I've actually been doing that research. So once I have sort of my hands wrapped around that, I'll certainly provide more information for everybody around the VAT in Europe. However, in terms of being able to get started in Europe, you do not have to have the VAT unless your business is located there in Europe. So, for example, for those folks that are based here in the United States, you only really need, in this case, your EIN and your limited liability or your limited partnership company, whatever sort of entity structure you use. So that's one thing to take into consideration. Again, the same process for getting registered is similar across all markets. You just might need a little bit more information in one market versus the other. And that's really pretty much it. Claudia actually had another question, a different question, Mark. She asked, how do you decide on your product niche? I actually put together, I know that there's some people that are thinking, you know what, I got a business and I want to expand it from my one marketplace to some of these other marketplaces. But I also created another video that's actually just in our bonus section of the course content, but it's around product ideation from a global sales perspective. So I kind of walk you through just kind of how to think about coming
Let me
up with
put
the
that
right
in
product.
regular English for those of us who don't use words that are that big. That means how to find
Oh,
products.
yes, thank you, thank you. My apologies. So how to find products essentially is essentially what we would be doing there. But in this case, some of the criteria, just to kind of put this out there real quick, the criteria that I use is I'm looking for a product that already has some decent competition. Not too great, not too little, but some decent competition. I want to see at least two people that's selling almost the exact same product, at least two, maybe three or four or five people, but not just one person. It's the other thing I look at, and I want products that are currently selling between a best-selling rank of 500 to 10,000 in that particular marketplace. If I'm seeing that and I'm looking at the history, and we have some tools that I discuss on how to look at the history of that without you having to buy like an actual tool. It's a free tool that I use that will give you the history of both the pricing and the sales rank in each of these different countries for any product on the Amazon marketplace. If you're looking at that over a period of time and you see there's no huge fluctuations, then that's another data point that I use to decide, all right, this could be a winner. I'm going to add this to my list of potential products to sell on Amazon in that particular country.
All right. Mike has a question here. What percentage of your sales come from other countries?
I'd say it's about 40, 50% roughly. So I'd say somewhere around 50, give or take, is here in the United States, and then the other 50 is global. So in all the other marketplaces.
Well, since you haven't been doing or have been doing the United States sales longer and it's more mature and your products and have advanced up in the listings, I would presume that just going through if you could just look at the crystal ball by end of 2016 as everything evens out, I would suspect that most of it will be coming from outside the U.S., correct?
That is correct, and that's what we're banking on. I mean, again, we got started in some of these other marketplaces a little bit later than we did in the United States. Nonetheless, you can expect that if you do all the right things and you're putting in all the best practices, you should be able to expect that your sales in all these other marketplaces are going to exceed your sales in the United States.
All right, because again, all these other things do add up to be bigger than the United States. All right, okay, folks, we were going to try and shoot for about an hour, but we've got a lot of questions here, and we're going to try and get to all of them. However, we just may run out of time, so we're just going to take a handful more. So if I miss it, please don't take it personally. Post it in the Facebook group or email. We'll see if we can answer it if we don't get to it here. So again, please don't take it personally. Gary is asking, do you pay taxes in each individual country?
You do have to pay taxes in each. That is one thing that I do know. You do have to pay taxes in each individual country. I know that in the UK or some of the markets, you do have to reach a threshold of 82,000 before you have to. There's certain nuances, but yes, you do have to pay taxes in each individual country. But again, don't let that be the inhibitor. Many of us have already gotten started. I've gotten started selling globally. That didn't stop me. I'll have to pay the taxes at some point, but I'm still sort of in that process of kind of figuring that that last piece out, but it's not that big a deal. It's actually a good thing if you have to pay taxes.
Yeah, that just only means one thing: is you made a ton of money.
Right.
All right. This is a pretty good question here. It says, do you apply for brand or Mark has written it says, do you apply for brand registry in the UK or did your US brand registry carry over?
Good question, Mark. No, you have to apply for brand registry in each individual marketplace. The only difference is that in the UK, you only have to have brand registry there in the UK, and that spills over to the other European markets, including France, Italy, Spain, and Japan. In the United States or in North America, you do have to become brand registered in the US and separately in the UK and separately in Mexico. In Japan, you do have to become brand registered separately over there. So the only difference is in the UK or in Europe, you get brand registered once, and that should spill over to the other marketplaces. Part of it is primarily for me because I've been able to send all my inventory to just one marketplace. But over, from that perspective, you're actually pretty good to go.
But you can use the same website. You just have to fill out the paperwork again, right?
Yeah, you just use the same websites, same pictures, same branding, and after that, you're good to go.
Yeah, so all downhill if you've already done it once.
Yeah.
Okay, Lisa writes in, says, I'm launching my first product or private label on Amazon as soon as it arrives, probably first week of November. It'll be up and online. Should be trying going international. Should I try going international or just stay in the U.S. for my first product? Lisa, in this, just as a thought, I kind of believe you try and keep it simple. In the very first beginning, to try and expand quickly is a lot to take on. I stress over and over again, go through the learning curve, figure out what you're doing, learn all the nuances, and then expand and scale up after that. So, again, your choice, seller's choice to do whatever you want to do on that. If it were me, I would let the product go and learn a little bit before I tried to expand it into other countries. But once you do it, it should be relatively, nothing's easy, but by any means it should be easier than trying to do it all at once when you're still trying to get your feet wet.
Yeah, I will say this just one follow-up. Lisa, if you get to the point where your first week your product really does take off in November and you say, you know what, I really need to get some more inventory so I can sell, in the U.S., and you have enough funds, order an additional, let's say, 100 units, and then, I know, once you've really gotten your feet wet, take some of that inventory, send 50 to Canada, send 50, let's say, to UK, test out those markets so you can start building your base over there. But that's one thing that just a small nuance that I would suggest. December is supposed to be a pretty good month, so definitely focus on the USA. But if you get to the point where it's good sales, maybe give it a try.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to go down. And Mary says, but Canada has better beer. That's funny. Mike says, thanks, Mark and Justin. Great job. Thank you from Lisa. Talking about her marketing background, so thank you for that. A couple other thanks coming in, so all of you for that. So, again, I want to appreciate all of you coming in. Cher writes in and says, will this be recorded and replayed? Yes, Cher, short of technical reasons. Unless we have something like that, we'll have it up in a few days or so. Mark writes in, says, much appreciated. Mark and Justin, well, thank you. Gary says, cheers, good luck, good work. And folks, I guess we're in here because we're going to try and keep it an hour. So I want to thank everybody for being here. And again, if you have future questions, just try and reach us. We'll go from there. And again, I hope that the course is something that you find valuable as a private label passport. So thanks, everybody, and good evening.